Have you ever felt like your nose is too big, too crooked, too flat, badly shaped? Have you ever compared your nose to the beautiful influencers and celebrities that you see in the media and wish that your nose looked more like theirs? Wish it was a little bit straighter, smaller, thinner, neater? You are not the only one. We've all seen the famous nose jobs gone wrong, but what about the sneaky nose jobs that went right that aren't so obvious? It seems that insecurities regarding nose shape and nose size are infiltrating most men and women these days, to the point that even the influencers and celebrities that you see in the media that you thought were au naturel have in fact had their honkers allegedly tweaked in favor of a more aesthetically pleasing nose. Is there anyone still rocking their original nose? Well, me. And I'm not always happy about it. You may have noticed that in the majority of my videos, my nose is contoured to within an inch of its life. Because, my friends, I am extremely insecure about my nose, and I have been since I was a literal child. I have been told since I was a child that my nose is big, makes me look ugly, it's flat, it's crooked, and honestly, I've believed it. I even went to a doctor a few years ago for something totally unrelated. In fact, I think I wanted to get lip filler. And he stared at me for a long time and then he said, "Have you ever had your nose broken?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, it looks like you have, and I can fix it for you." And I was so offended. I remember leaving that appointment, getting back to my car and just bursting into tears because I was like, this professional thinks that my nose is so wonky that it's been broken in the past. And to my knowledge, it hasn't. I was born with this wonky nose, okay? Now I know for a fact that it is not just me who feels this insecurity regarding their nose, because surgical rhinoplasty, aka a nose job, is the second most popular plastic surgery in America today. And honestly, I can bloody tell. It seems like everywhere I look these days, people are undergoing surgery in a bid to erase their natural nose in order to achieve the nose that society tells us we are supposed to have. Like, who cares about our damn genetics? Never mind our natural bloody bone structure. If you, like me, have felt insecure about your nose since you were a child, you are not the only one. This idea of what a female's nose should look like has been ingrained in our minds since we were children. Look at the Disney princesses. Every single one of these characters has the exact same tiny upturned nose. However, juxtapose these Disney princesses with the portrayal of the Disney villains, and you'll see that these poor unfortunate women have very differently shaped noses. Long, large, bulbous, curved the wrong way, potentially with a bump or hump on the bridge. Barbie, she's the same, tiny, thin, upturned nose. Bratz dolls, they're the same, tiny, thin, upturned nose. Rainbow High, which is super popular today, tiny, thin, upturned nose. And in fact, there are actually some women who have gone as far as getting their faces surgically altered to look like Barbie dolls or Disney princesses when they become adults, because they have taken on that idea that this will make them look pretty. It is so damaging. The war on female noses has been going on for such a long time that you probably haven't even noticed it. Look at the TV show Friends. Rachel Green, the hot one, apparently wasn't so hot before her nose job. In fact, one of the long-running jokes in Friends is Rachel's looks before getting her nose done. 90s cult classic Clueless? Half the extras in this movie were sporting bandages on their noses, subliminally promoting the normality of nose jobs. Which begs the question, why on earth are we so afraid of our natural noses? Why are we quite literally trying to beat our noses into submission by surgically breaking them and then reshaping them in order to make what should be a functional part of our bodies something more aesthetically pleasing? Here's what society's beauty standards don't get. Different people have different noses. Not by fluke. In fact, our bodies rarely do anything by accident, including our nose shape. Depending on your genetic makeup, you may physically take after certain members of your ancestry. Is your nose long and curved? Does your nose have a bump? If so, perhaps you have what's known as the Roman nose or aquiline aquiline nose. This nose shape has a prominent bridge and may be curved or slightly bent. Nowadays, people with this nose shape make up the majority of people who undergo surgical rhinoplasty. However, in early Europe, the aquiline nose symbolized beauty and nobility. And in fact, for most of history, this particular nose shape was considered the most desirable shape. On the other hand, if your nose is straight and long, maybe you have what's known as a Greek nose. This nose is characterized by its long, sturdy, straight appearance. Maybe you could look back through your ancestry and see if you do in fact have ancestors that originated from or near Greece. Does your nose have a shorter bridge? Do you have large nostrils? If so, then perhaps your nose resembles the Nubian nose. The Nubian nose is often found in people whose ancestors originated from hot countries. If, however, your nose is short and upturned, then perhaps you have what's known as the snub nose. Does your nose have a thicker tip? Then maybe you have what's known as the bulbous nose, kind of like Blake Lively's original nose. This nose is most usually found in people with heritage from Northern Europe. In reality, no nose shape should be considered more beautiful or more prized than another. But for some crazy reason, we as a society have come to demonize one nose shape in favor of another nose shape. For example, we have demonized the thick nasal bridge in favor of the thin, Eurocentric looking nose. But did you know that thick nasal bridges actually serve a really important purpose? People whose ancestors lived in hot, humid climates tend to have wider nostrils and a thicker nasal bridge. This made inhaling the thick, hot air from these climates easier. Now on the flip side, if you have a long, narrow, thin nose with small nostrils, there is a high chance that your ancestors came from cold climates. Cold air is actually really irritating to the sinuses, and as such, people from these climates evolved to have smaller nostrils and smaller nasal bridges in order to control the amount of air that flooded in. These smaller nostrils and smaller nasal bridges also helped to circulate the air within the sinus and warm it up so that it wasn't as irritating to the nose. I find that so fascinating. Like, our noses are so functional, they are so smart. There is so much more to your nose than looking like a bloody Bratz doll. Now, whilst there are a lot of influencers and celebrities who have felt the need to surgically alter their noses, whether it be for aesthetic reasons or for health reasons, there are still a few who have decided to keep their natural noses, even though their natural nose may not fit today's beauty standards. Let's take a look at Emily Ratajkowski. She is a super successful model and influencer with millions upon millions of followers on Instagram. And anybody with eyes can see that she is absolutely beautiful to look at. If you were to put Emily through a filter of today's beauty standards, this is what her nose would look like. However, that is not Emily's nose. That is not what she looks like. This is Emily's nose, and as you can see, it is longer than the famed celestial nose. It's not upturned, she doesn't have Barbie nostrils, and it isn't perfectly straight. It tilts to the right. Yet Emily is a professional model and regarded as being insanely hot. I'm personally glad she hasn't changed her nose because I love how unique her nose is, and it is custom made for her face, and it adds so much character to her looks. Then we have Gisele Bündchen. She is one of the world's biggest, richest supermodels. She's worked for Victoria's Secret, Chanel, Dolce & Gabbana, and whilst her nose is straight, by society's current beauty standards, it is way too long. It's not upturned. Now, Gisele's ancestry is German, and her nose is actually very typically German looking. According to experts, Germans have a characteristic V-shaped nose, which is thought to be descended from the Roman nose. If Gisele was to undergo a nose job to shorten her nose and create an upturned tip, she would lose that part of her facial story forever. Gisele is proof that you don't need to have the typical Instagram nose to be beautiful, successful, or happy. And then we have Candace Swainpole. She's also a supermodel and doesn't have the typical nose job nose. Her nose curves the wrong way, according to society's beauty standards. She doesn't have an upturned nose. When she smiles or laughs, her nose looks very curved and prominent. And despite the fact that her nose isn't 1 centimeter in thickness and she has a thicker bridge, she is still a supermodel. She is still absolutely beautiful. Hailey Bieber, influencer and model, her nose is reminiscent of the traditional Roman or aquiline nose. It's not perfectly straight. In fact, it tilts to the right, and so does mine, interestingly enough. And she has what's known as a bump or dorsal hump on her bridge. And yet it does not detract from her beauty. In fact, it just adds to it. Now, surprisingly, nose jobs are actually not a new phenomenon. Yes, they absolutely are becoming more popular now than ever. However, nose jobs, or trying to alter the look of your nose in some way, has been going on for centuries. Back in Germany a few hundred years ago, entrepreneur and marketing specialist Leo Maximilian Baginski created this horrifying, what? Looking contraption known as the Nasenformer Zello. This machine would be strapped to your face and over a period of time would mold and change your nose cartilage to a more desired shape. To be fair, that actually seems less brutal than today's surgical nose jobs. Now I'm going to leave this video here with my little personal opinion about my nose and why I refuse to undergo surgical rhinoplasty in order to make my nose prettier. To be fair, I can breathe extremely well through my nose. Yes, I have a thicker bridge and I have thicker nostrils, which I guess hark back to my ancestors, but I can breathe really, really, really well. I have also been whacked in the face numerous times by really heavy balls, and my nose has never once broken. I can smell really well, and when I have a cold, I can eject so much snot, it's amazing. So no, I am not going to surgically alter my nose. Yes, I probably will continue to contour it because I'm really, really good at it, and I like the way it looks, but the good thing about makeup is I can wash it off at the end of the day, or some days I can just simply choose not to contour my nose at all. If I undergo surgical rhinoplasty and physically change my bone structure, I can't undo that. Now, if you guys have watched this whole video and are like, Steph, I really don't care what you say, I'm still gonna go out and book myself a nose job, all power to you. It is your nose and your face, and you can do whatever you want with it. Don't let me tell you otherwise, and don't let anyone else tell you ever what to do with your face. But just know that it may not make you feel more confident, it may make it harder to breathe, but on the flip side, it may totally increase your confidence, and you may have no issues with it at all. Make sure you do your due diligence, research your surgeon extremely well, and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Okay, love you guys, bye!